So, this video is about the Cold War. Well, not really, actually. We're just gonna change it up, and it's gonna be about things leading up to the Cold War, and other stuff. Okay. So, it all basically started out during World War II, and the United States and the Soviet Union were like best buddies, and they were like, yo, let's defeat the Germans. And they were so happy and stuff that they basically hugged each other, and they were like, you know what, we defeated the Nazis, let's, be best friends. But their leaders, they just didn't like each other for some reason, and then they basically started the Cold War somehow. So this dude right here, this is Joseph Stalin, okay? And the US was pretty much mad at him because he signed a non-aggression pact with Germany in 1939. And they were like, oh, that's not cool, dude. So there were all these disagreements between them. And then they ended up not liking each other, Soviet Union and the United States. So something very important that happened was the Yalta Conference, and this is where Great Britain, the US, and the Soviet Union got together. Okay, and this right here, this is Germany, and the only thing that they accomplished in this conference was that they decided to split up Germany into parts controlled by the Allied military forces. In June 1945, the US and Soviet Union were like, okay, let's be friends. Why not? Little did they know that this was only temporary. So anyway, they joined 48 other countries to form the lovely United Nations. And this was an organization that was intended to protect its members against aggression. So in this organization, there were five permanent members, and they were Britain, China, France, the United States, and the Soviet Union. And they could, each cast a vote on, issues that they thought were important and whatnot. And they could override the others or stuff like that. I know this looks like the US, but bear with me here, it's the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was always scared of invasion because it lacked natural western borders, so they were always taught to fear invasion. During the last two world wars, the Germans were like, yeah, let's invade Russia, and they did. I swear the US and Russia were always at it. This whole war was basically them just nagging on each other, and that's all you basically need to know, but I'm gonna give you some more details about that. Okay, so in case you couldn't tell, this is my attempt at drawing Europe. And there's a little something called the Iron Curtain, and it divided East and West. Now, Germany had been split into just two parts. And the Soviets controlled the eastern part, and it was under a communist government. And the western zones became kind of like a federal republic Germany in 1949. And this was just a big division of Europe that was really, really important. And the phrase Iron Curtain was described by Winston Churchill. And it represented Europe's division into mostly democratic Western Europe and communist Eastern Europe. That's basically what you have to remember, that the Western part was democratic and the communist part was the Eastern part. I feel so bad for Germany during this entire thing. The US and its allies were fighting with the Soviet Union over Germany. And in 1948, France and Britain and the US withdrew their forces from Germany so Germany could, be one nation and be like, yay, Germany. And then the Soviet Union held West Berlin hostage. Yay, Soviet Union. Okay, so they basically cut off the highway, water, and rail traffic in Berlin, and the city was basically poop, okay? And they finally they admitted defeat in of West Berlin, and Soviet Union was like, okay, we're not as cool as we think we are, so we're gonna let West Berlin go. And this was called the Berlin Airlift. Okay, so now we're at the Cold War, and all of these events I just told you about are what caused it to happen in the first place. And all of the superpowers in 1949, they used things like spying and propaganda in their dealings with each other. And most of the world, they either sided with the US or the Soviet Union. And actually, the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, and the Cold War dictated not only the US and Soviet foreign policy, but it influenced world alliances as well. Okay, so the Berlin Airlift pretty much scared everyone, and Western Europe was like, oh, I don't want the Soviet Union to get near me. So in 1949, the United States and Canada and, some other European nations, they formed this beautiful thing called NATO, which stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And any attack on anyone a part of NATO would be met with an armed force by all member nations. So I don't think you would want to mess with them. So the Soviet Union, being who they are, they saw NATO and they were like, oh, maybe we should be like them. So they're like, okay, let's copy them. So they made this thing called the Warsaw Pact and included them, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and Albania. And in 1961, the East Germans, they built this wall in Berlin to separate from east to west. And this was called the Berlin Wall. And it symbolized a world divided into rival camps. And actually, not everyone wanted to be with, on either side. They just remained neutral. They were like, the Soviet Union was like, hey, want to join us? And they were just like, no, we're cooler than you. Places like this were India. They just didn't want to be with either side. And, China, which was the largest communist country, they actually came to not trust the Soviet Union. I wonder why. You see this? This is our world. This is where we live, okay? And the Cold War pretty much could ruin that because, nuclear war, boom, and this was actually really scary. And the US and Soviet Union already started making nuclear weapons. In case you couldn't tell, that's my attempt at an atomic bomb. And President Truman got really scared because he didn't want the Soviets to make a, cooler device faster than we did. So he and some other people were working really hard to make something 10 times more awesome than they would. Okay, so I'm just going to end the video here. Just keep in mind that this is not where the Cold War ended. As we all know, the, crash of the Berlin Wall, pretty much. The Cold War also helped with technology advances, and the Soviet Union made all this cool stuff and was really advanced, and the US was like, oh, maybe I should do that too. So the US tried and, advanced more and so on and so forth, and this actually made things worse, sadly. And this isn't where the Cold War ended, but this is where I'm leaving off the video, so bye!